Real estate selling is an art and it requires your physical presence. So please don't do cross-country investments. Buy something nearby. They will give you a positive return. I don't think you can sort of say, okay, this is a penny stock versus a mega stock. So returns on real estate are relative and they're almost consistent. It's not like you buy a big builder and therefore you get a better appreciation. Your appreciation is generalized to the market. So you can buy anywhere near you if you are very inclined to buy physical real estate.
Folks, welcome to Paisa Paisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter. And on today's episode, I'm really thrilled to have Shobhit Agarwal, MD and CEO of Anarock Capital Advisors. We are going to talk about how infrastructure impacts real estate. You know, all the bridges and metros and all that stuff coming up, how that impacts real estate prices. All of that and much more. Folks, we had Anarock like 6 years ago, back in 2018 when Prashant Thakur was here. So today I'm totally thrilled to have a veteran of real estate and that too on the capital side. Shobhit, welcome to Paisa Paisa. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you, Anupam, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here. As always, Paisa Paisa is a show that I also watch.
Nice.
So I never thought I'll get here, but I'm so happy that I am. And thanks for inviting me.
Very kind of you. Shobhit, real estate is a hot sector wherever you see it. You know, contribution to GDP, contribution to general mood, conversations that we keep on having everywhere. So what's happening in real estate? I mean, if you look at the stock market, also the prices are doing well. If you look at real life, residential, commercial, overall view of real estate. Let's start from there.
Yeah, good question. I mean, like you said, Anupam, real estate touches everybody one way or the other. So rich feel richer, poor feel poorer, whatever it is. The quality of real estate determines all of that. And we are in very interesting times as we speak. I've almost spent over 2 decades in real estate now, and really I've not seen this sort of environment where volumes are up and pricing is up. Usually the thesis is that if volume goes up, the prices are inversely proportional, so prices will start to cool off. Yeah. But it seems like both things are climbing, and it's been a few years, so probably third year, fourth year of a good cycle. Let's see how long it lasts. But you're right, it feels great to be in this sector after a long time.
Okay, Shobhit, let's talk about this link between infrastructure and real estate, right? Because we are seeing, you mentioned about how real estate cycle is moving up and infrastructure, it seems everywhere in at least the major cities that I've been to, whether it is Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, there's just an upgrade happening. We stay in Bombay, we've seen how the metro, coastal road, so many projects are going on. So if you can help our audience understand the linkage between this infrastructure build out and the impact on real estate prices.
Yeah, so Anupam, good question. And I think it's very relevant in today's point because it's visible to naked eye that everywhere you go, you see something happening, right? Whether it's bridge. In fact, you mentioned only urban cities, big cities, but if you travel outside these cities, you see highways being expanded, new highways being built. I hail from a small town. There also the metro started. Almost in every city in country, metros have come in, green buses have come in, autos have become electric. So we have lots of small changes. And of course, what government is doing on large scale, like building bridges and new highways, is also there. Now, 2 things will happen. In general, so far in the last 2 decades, for whatever reason, real estate was leading the growth. Infra was catching up. So we always were promised when we were buying a house, saying, "Yahan pe ye road aane wala hai." Road aaya nahi, par ghar ban gaya. Right? Which was also not a very fast act. It took 5-6 years to build that house, but road bana hi nahi. Right? So first of all, there's this very large catch-up that is happening, and that is why you see construction almost everywhere around you. This is what a common man will feel, and it's true that infra is catching up in most cities. Only in few cities, infrastructure is ahead of real estate. That includes, as an example, a city called as Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Greater Noida, where infrastructure was put first, and then real estate started to catch up. Now, I'll tell you what linkage it has. Generally, infrastructure is inversely proportional to real estate. The more infra you build, the less value appreciation you will get for reality, because you are able to reach places with those new roads. If I can reach a better accommodation and by traveling 10 minutes on a nice clean highway, I don't mind traveling far. But unlike Bombay, which unfortunately we are all here, Bombay always lacked infrastructure, and that is why the prices in the city were high. That is why people didn't like relocation. Those born in Walkeshwar want to live in Walkeshwar. Those born in Dahisar will probably want to move and upgrade, but they didn't have the choice because the prices were too high. Now, I think Bombay city is trying to catch up with infrastructure. Probably was a laggard, right? It is trying to catch up, and you'll see how it will unfold if everything gets connected the way the promise has been made by the government. Work is going on, so hopefully we'll see. But it's an inverse relationship. The more infra you have, the better for the home buyer because the pricing remains moderate. Every time something new happens, you can go to a new location. So new locations get created out of having sufficient infra.
Very interesting. I haven't looked at it that way, but now that you mention it, if you look at, say a western suburb like Bandra, where now after the ceiling came up in 2009, the Bandra prices have remained the same. Except for new projects, that's a different thing.
That's right.
But low Parel prices have gone up,
which is the other very interesting point, that people think that if we connect our rural areas with big highways and good infra to cities, more migration will happen to the city. My view is it could happen the other way around.
Wow.
More people may travel out of the city and stay in bigger, better accommodation little bit further from the city because you can do that, right? So infra has many surprises for us, but overall it's a good thing that it's getting done because it's good for the next generation. They don't have to, hopefully lesser density of cars, more people traveling in metros. You see cities like Singapore, Dubai, you feel nice about it because you can move in those cities either by road or by metro or by any other public transport, and you don't feel bad about it at all. I mean, I know so many people that sit in buses in London but won't sit in buses in India.
What's the difference?
All the difference, right?
Let's talk about tier 1, tier 2 cities, okay? Because we've had a lot of guests on our show talking about how, the metro thing is, the metro story in India is kind of done. We know what's happening out there. The next level is smaller cities relative to the bigger ones, obviously. I think something like a Mysore. I don't know how you real estate firms map out this entire thing. It's very interesting. Let's talk about that for a while.
So I can define that for you. So from a real estate perspective, and the way we measure it is the amount of dollars it is attracting. So there are 3 mega cities. Number 1 is Mumbai, call it MMR, then Delhi, call it NCR, and Bangalore. So these are tier 1 cities. They take up most of the capital that is designated for real estate, right? So almost 60 to 70% of all capital that is deployed goes to these mega cities. Then there are 4 other cities that take up the balance, or almost the most of the balance. Near Mumbai, we have Pune, 2 cities in the south, which is Chennai and Hyderabad, 1 city in the east in Calcutta. Those are the 4 that I mentioned, and now coming up a little bit, call it 4.5, is Ahmedabad. So these are the big cities that are attracting most of the foreign capital. Domestic capital, of course, goes a little bit more deeper because it's also mandatory. People who are manning this capital are from some of the smaller towns. They love it to go back. So capital cities like Jaipur, Indore, or Bhopal, Lucknow are the next recipients. And that clearly, in many cases, is what I would define as tier 2 cities. Right? And it's not by population, it is not by any other parameter, simply a financial metric saying where does the dollar go. As far as we are concerned in real estate, there may be other definitions for other people, but from our perspective, it's simple.
So, if you look at the entire map of India, and since you also speak to developers a lot, and since you also mentioned about where is the capital going, what are some interesting trends to you? Or if I were to ask it differently, what are some interesting projects across India that you can see that you're getting a lot of calls from people saying, Shobhit, let's arrange, let's talk, let's do a deal, let's see where funding is coming. Is it like Bombay for the new airport? Is it any other part of India? What are these hotspots that really stand out to you?
From an investment perspective or call of investment, unfortunately, it's global clues, right? So obviously these three cities are very critical. So a lot of job creations happen in these cities. There's migration. There is unrealistic growth in these three cities, and they'll continue to grow because they've reached a certain size, right?
And just to recap, three cities are Bombay, Delhi,
again, I'm
Bangalore.
repeating. You're right. Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. So these three cities will continue to see growth, unprecedented, and yet they'll remain as the major destination. But they're a very interesting new trend which mimic hospitality. So we are seeing people doubling down on Goa, right? It's a great place to go. People doubling down on suburbs of these three cities, call it Alibag. Delhi has its own suburbs where people are doubling down for a leisure home, second home, leisure home, little getaway. It has a nice sort of veggie garden. It may have a pool, right? But it just allows you to take a little break and yet not be away from work, right? So you can still operate, but you're not on your desk, right? Of course, holidays are not, this is not counted in the holiday list of second home goers, right? So second homes are becoming popular everywhere, and people have started to buy plots. I mean, somehow it's gone into our mind saying land doesn't depreciate, so it's seen as a good thing to do, and these big cities are now sort of jumping to buy plotted developments in and around major cities. So in Mumbai, you go to Panvel, you'll find large schemes with plotting. Bangalore has it all around. Fortunately, it's a very circular city, north, south, east, west. They're plotting projects, and obviously one big trend even within plotting is connectivity. So either a new highway or a new airport. So on way to the new airport, on way to a new city, if the highway is good, people are really doing things within the driving distance, which is roughly 2 hours.
Okay.
If you can reach your sort of second home in 2 hours, there is a demand for it. By car, of course.
Can we have a discussion on commercial, what's happening there? Because the economy is also doing really well. And there's a lot of action happening on, data centers, warehouses. So what's happening there?
So if we all have to believe that this country is going to deliver anywhere between 5% to 7%, whatever the number is, 5% above GDP growth, it cannot happen without having equal size office. People cannot deliver this growth sitting at home and working from home, right? It's a bit like, I mean, there could be a hybrid, but it's a bit like saying my kids will become doctors by doing online. They can't, right? It's a little bit impractical to think. So kids have to go to school. You have to go to places of worship to worship. Like that, you have to go to offices to work. There is no way out of it. You may have some flexibility. Flex is fine, but that doesn't mean offices are out. So offices for the last 3-4 years or half a decade were a little bit in the cold storage. They have come out with a vigor. This year particularly for India is going to be the largest ever year for office leasing. We are going to have more new offices than we ever had.
Wow.
Roughly, we sort of lease between 35 to 40 million square feet a year. We're going to create a new benchmark. We're definitely going past 40. Probably will end up at 50 million square feet of incremental new office.
Wow.
This is not relocation. This is saying this is new built, new take up, and it does not affect the old one.
Yeah.
Right? So the old one is still full. This is the incremental space. So just to give you some perspective, India has about 750 million square feet of office space in these 7 cities that I mentioned. Just New York has 600 million square feet of office.
Wow.
So we are saying all of India can't be just equal to New York, right? So there's something wrong. So we are obviously got undersupply. We are very, very cautious. I think we are probably one of the we as Indians use things as it is required to. We don't sort of overeat. We don't overspend. We are very cautious frugal with our spends. You see, when I'm saying this, I mean, if you see a new bridge, the day it is built, it's got traffic. You've not built a bridge to nowhere. I don't see any bridges in India which are to nowhere. The day you build the dam infrastructure, traffic is on it. That means the demand was there, you just put the bloody bridge. Like that, offices are also similar. You build an office, it gets occupied. We are not building empty buildings, right? People have that much sense saying, look, if it's not going to get built, used, I'm not going to build it.
That's right.
So pretty much in sync, it's a great year and we need to have more offices. We have to have good grade offices to be able to meet this growth expectation. When we are saying we're going to be 5 trillion, 6 trillion, $7 trillion economy, you can't do it without going to offices. So 100% offices are going to do well.
Cool.
And we are well poised for it.
How are the builders doing, right? Because the stock market is giving us a message that everything seems to be quite good. But you've seen them now over your 20-year career and you've seen ups and downs. You know what excesses look like. In 2008, we had a lot of these builders going down. The industry itself has transformed. RERA has come in, etc., etc. So what's happening on the builders side?
So it was like the last few years were like a cleanup. That cleanup stage is over. Those who managed to survive are doing extremely well. And just to give things in perspective, really information that's in public, 10 years ago, we had 2 companies with $1 billion market cap in real estate. There were several companies otherwise listed in the stock market. Indian real estate today, there are 35 companies with over $1 billion market cap. And yet, those 35 companies add up to less than 2% contribution to GDP.
Wow.
Right? So we have so much of headroom. We think China, on the other hand, even though they're down on real estate, their contribution to GDP, real estate contribution is over 8%. Right? We are saying we are at 2%. Just the list co, right? I'm not talking about unlisted. So there's so much headroom. 35 companies have come up in over last 10 years, which have crossed that market cap. I think some of these will go into, 5, 10, $15 billion market cap, right? So there is headroom for growth. There are, if you break down your question into two, saying credibility and compliance. If these companies were not compliant, they wouldn't be doing well. So we are saying governance at some level has been taken care of. They are doing well. All this RERA and other changes that have come in have been well received. Our law is stable and the growth has started to happen. Only with that we will be able to see companies that have compliance are growing, and which is a proof in the pudding there is doing well. We think some companies will grow to a massive size, and many others will follow. So we may have, instead of 35 companies, we may have 70 companies or 80 companies that will cross $1 billion in market cap in the next 5 years, right? Because India needs housing. There is no surplus housing. There is no question of surplus housing. Whether it's good, bad, ugly, unfortunately, we are a housing shortage. We are a country. We have still so many people staying homeless or don't have shelter. So we will always be playing catch up. The problem with the last cycle was that catch up went in the wrong direction. Some didn't get finished. So we had problem with unfinished projects. We didn't ever had a problem with demand. So we have a bottomless demand. We have to play catch up. If you keep doing well, I guess Resi doesn't have to worry about sales. Just keep your product good and pricing fair. I think you've solved the problem. You don't have to do much. Fortunately, the country has done everything else for you.
And that also we're talking at the peak of the interest rate cycle. Still, if the balance sheets are looking good, obviously something is going right out there. Supply. You think anywhere in any city there is any pockets of oversupply where it might have an impact on demand going forward? Like in Bombay, you can see that the redevelopment has gone into some other zone only. But your thoughts?
Okay. So in general, yes, we are seeing a supply build-up. So definitely, at the moment, we are not used to seeing so much product being built. It's very early to say there will be an oversupply. But I think if there is oversupply, by the way, from a home buyer's perspective, it's like providing choices. So the more choice you have, the better it is for you. So the home buyers needless to worry. Who has to worry is the developer who has to manage his balance sheet and the banks who are financing this business. My view is that we are not going to get into an overbuilt situation in the near future, right? I can't predict very far, but in the near future, I don't see there will be some micro pockets everywhere which will have some issue, but overall, as a country, we are not heading towards an oversupply situation. Talking about redev in Bombay, because we hear about it, we feel it, we are all based here. Please name 3 new buildings in the last decade in Walkeshwar. Nothing, right? So that's richest part of the country. Most people, highest taxpayers are staying there. You haven't built 3 new buildings there, right? So yes, it requires redevelopment. These buildings I've seen in black and white movies in 1970s. They're still standing there. Country needs an upgrade. So we are talking about premiumization, and we are talking about sort of formalization. So when I'm saying formalization, we're talking about all the slum rehabilitation that is happening. These people are in your city, they are functioning, they are working. They need to have access to public infrastructure. They need fresh water, they need sewerage, they need drainage. If they are doing what they're doing, it's harming themselves, it's unfair for them. Plus, it impacts the overall environment of the country, right? There's no, your hygiene is an issue, cleanliness is an issue. You go abroad, the first thing you say is, what a beautiful city. Why can't we say the same thing for India, right? We can say it, right? You should be able to say it. But unless you formalize all of this and make sure that everybody has the right quality of shelter, big or small doesn't matter, but right quality of shelter, I think as a nation we need to provide it, and we are working towards it very sincerely. So I think all the builders and the governments are trying very hard to get this cleaned up. Hopefully it'll happen over the next decade. And as metros start to come live, as bridges start to sort of talk to each other, I think the way you see the city is going to change completely.
So the most important question for all our audiences right now, कि भाई घर कब खरीदना है? When do we buy a house? Every time, it's like 4 years ago when the pandemic happened, panic happened, the few people who managed to get some really sweet deals, wo chahe stock market ho ya real estate ho. Today, they are saying कि real estate is the best bet, etc. But honestly, someone who's watching this right now, looking to you, he's just been waiting, कि भाई मुझे घर खरीदना है. Self-use, by the way, not investment. What's your advice?
So you've sort of answered the question towards the end yourself, saying, listen, there is never the right or better time to buy your apartment. It depends on when you want to use it. So if you think you need a house today, you must buy it. And the reason I'm saying it is, listen, if you don't intend to sell, then how does it matter to you? It is the longest term investment you're doing. Stock market, long term, short term, you sell one in 1 year. Sometimes you do day trading, sometimes you do year long trading, and sometimes you hold for long time. Real estate you own for 25, 30 years. I mean, traditionally in India, 3 generations live in one house. I'm staying in a house which my great grandfather built. Then my grandfather lived there, father lived. Then I am the one who's half my life I've spent, and then I've moved out. So it's a very long-term asset. I'm assuming everybody has the same story, saying you've lived there for generations together. Unlike many of our, Western countries where, one person stays in 5 houses before he dies, where he was born, then, young adult, then with kids, then old age and care homes, and then you go. India, you continuously stay in the same house. Yeah. So, guys, you think about it. You have to amortize this asset in your books for 45, 40 years. How does it matter? Yeah. It is worth every cent to buy it today, whether the prices are up or prices are down. If you have the bucks for it, please go ahead and lock that house today.
Okay. Now that I have the bucks for it, or I have stretched my budget beyond my own imagination, leave our audience with a nice checklist of what he should look for in a builder. कि भाई ये चीज़ ही 10, 15, 20 years ago, or at least in our parents' generation time, it was never even a choice. You have to buy whatever is available in the market. Today, sometimes I feel that real estate, at least, has become like an FMCG product. You can pick and choose brand, ye, wo, so...
Absolutely. The choices for our generation or the generation next has improved significantly. Every city has very credible top 10 developers. They have multiple projects in multiple locations, all going well. Fortunately, some of the problems that we faced in the last decade, we have fixed them. So now there cannot be a situation where a project is launched and started work will not finish. Because every single rupee that is being received from sales is locked in a government escrow first, and then the bank escrow, and then the developer gets it at the end. So there's no financial mismanagement, fraud possible at this stage of the project. So one doesn't have to worry very much about whether this builder will finish this project. It is almost guaranteed by the government. They don't write the word guaranteed, but it's implicit, it's implied very clearly in RERA, saying this developer can't do it. And by the way, if the developer something happens to the developer, the government is giving guarantee that we'll finish the project because there's money lying in the bank account. So with or without, that project is going to get finished. As far as my checklist is concerned, I think, it's many times people just think about the product saying, I want to buy this product and this is it. But guys, before you buy it, think about how you're going to use your house, what stage of life you are in. Do you need schools near your house or do you need hospitals near your house? Just please focus on what's the immediate need of the family. Make sure that these sort of facilities are nearby. If you're middle-aged, you need the school and the hospital. Make sure that you have the right infrastructure near you. Otherwise, kids or dependents will spend most of their time on the road. So that's really not the right choice. As far as the house itself is concerned, just make sure there's some breathing space beyond living and dining and your bedrooms. There should be some space for you to have some outdoor activities, whether it's walking or just simply sitting. And of course, we can have a wish list that doesn't end, but at least a minimum requirement of some open space and access to open space is a must. And of course, there's a medical infrastructure somewhere close to you, right? So don't have to travel 10 kilometers. Of course, for a specialized treatment you can, but for a day-to-day thing, make sure that you have a decent hospital nearby and some basic schools and markets, because these are daily needs. You can't live online.
Okay. So wrapping up this episode, Shobhit, let's look at this from the perspective of someone who wants to invest in real estate. Okay, ghar war ka to ho gaya. We've answered that question about how to choose a house. But how do I invest in this boom which you said is happening, and it seems to be, hopefully it will last for a while. So what are the various ways to invest in this?
I think this one I'm going to kill myself, but later, of speaking the truth, maybe it's not the right thing for me to do, but I will tell you.
Please.
Many years ago, investing was either gold or real estate. Today, I'm saying please use things that you have to, or buy things that you have to use, right? So first of all, it's a more end user driven market. So please focus on that. If you want to enjoy real estate for appreciation or for rent, guys, there is public markets for it. Please go for public markets. The friction cost of buying and selling real estate is very high. I won't recommend a sort of a kid or early age investors to get into it because it's very, very liquid. Yeah. When you try and sell real estate, it is an effort to sell it. And the returns are somewhat, I would say, similar to what stock markets are giving you to these days. It's better to invest easy is to go buy stocks of listed companies. Or buy REITs if you want. You need yield returns or income returns. You want to bet on appreciation. Please buy residential real estate companies. Of course, you can also invest in physical real estate, but first thing first, buy it in the city that you are in. You don't need to do any cross country expedition. And second, buy it at a distance where you can deal with it. Because when you are trying to deal with it, you will need to get there. The registrations are still physical. Inspections are still physical. You can't show online and book. We are not selling anything on Airbnb. By the way, Airbnb also does not sell anything. It only provides you temporary leased space, right? They sell room nights. or weeks maybe. So real estate selling is an art, and it requires your physical presence. So please don't do cross country investments. Buy something nearby, and almost I would say, while they will give you a positive return, I don't think you can sort of say, okay, this is a penny stock versus a mega stock. So returns on real estate are relative and they're almost consistent. Right. So there is no, it's not like you buy a big builder and therefore you get a better appreciation. Your appreciation is generalized to the market. So you can buy anywhere near you if you are very inclined to buy physical real estate.
I wanted to just explain in detail what you mentioned about there's a very high friction cost to real estate, because our audience out there would be thinking, chalo kuch investment le kharidte, maybe a 2-bed or 3-bed there. But you've said a very important thing that people don't usually get. Tell me, what are the costs and why is it important?
So when I say friction cost, this basically includes two very critical costs. When you buy real estate today, especially if it's under construction, you have to pay GST. And of course, all real estate, you have to pay stamp duty and registration, right? So if you end up buying something that's worth 100, in Maharashtra, for example, you'll end up paying 6% GST and 5% stamp duty. So there's 11% over and above this. So your property has to earn for that 11% because that's a one-time investment. You cannot recover it. So let's assume if you're thinking you'll make a 20% return, actually you have to make 20% on 111, not on 100. By the way, when you sell for 100, let's say you cross 131 as a number, at that point, again, it's not 131. It's probably you need to net it because you have to pay your income tax, you have to pay your other taxes, and the guy buying it has to still pay stamp duty and registration. So when you think you're buying for selling for 131, the buyer is actually paying close to 150. So you bought something for 100, somebody else bought something for 150 from you, and you end up only getting 20-25% return. Wow. The rest of the money is gone to the government. Right? So government earns roughly half, you earn half the appreciation. So it's very high. It's not the same case in stock markets. You get long-term capital gains tax. It's very, very easy. You receive the money, you pay your taxes online, you're done. You don't have to go for stamp duty, registration, signing, thumb impression, digital impression. It is still very manual. Although they've automated all of this, but in sense is half automated. You would still require physical presence. So friction cost is high and it's very complicated. It's not as easy as I made it sound like, but it will require a lot of hard work and CA consultation.
And on that note of very sage, very wise advice, that is a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, Shobhit Agarwal, MD and CEO of Anarock Capital Advisors. Shobhit, thank you so much for doing this for our audience.
Thank you, Anupam, once again. And I hope you enjoyed the show. And if anybody wants to reach out, Paisa Vaisa is the right place to do.
Thanks a lot for that, Shobhit.
Thank you.